Hey guys, welcome back to E-Doggy's Garage. We're glad you could be with us. You know, my wife was asking me what I liked about making these videos, and she kind of watched some of them and she says, Donnie, you're way too stiff. She says, you're a lot more fun than you make it look like on your videos. So one of my objectives to these videos or these episodes on YouTube, was to make people feel like they were just hanging out at our shop. We have a lot of guys that just come by to see what we're doing, and we just work while they kind of sit around and talk to us and watch and see the progress of our projects. So that's kind of what we want E-Doggy's Garage to be like. But right now, we're getting ready to work on the Mustang today, and I'm looking through the Trick Tools catalog because we just ordered an IC Engines Works kit, because we're going to use their modeling block kit to help us build our headers for the 427 Hemi that's in the 1965 Mustang project out in the garage. So some of the stuff that we're going to do on the 65 Mustang today is we've got to get ready to have our radiator made. As a matter of fact, we're going to talk to the guy who potentially could make our radiator, and I'm going to ask him if he would supply us with the parts, and because we would like to actually build the radiator ourselves. I don't know if he'll do that, but we'd like to try. We're taking the oil cooler off of the car today because we're going to switch to bigger lines. We're going to go from 10 to 12 AN on our cooler. So we're going to take our Fluidyne cooler off the front of the car. Sorry, I got distracted there. There was a lightning bug flying through here. So, crazy stuff that happens at E-Doggy's Garage. So, we're getting ready to do our radiator, so we're making a model of our radiator. We're going to get ready to plumb some of our oil system, our Clearview filter. We're going to figure out placement on it. We've got to get our Peterson fluid systems pump in and plumbed so we know where our radiator hose can go, and then our power steering. That's a number of things that we're going to be goofing with today. And then we've got our new trailing arms, or our lower control arms, that are made of chromoly and they're smaller diameter than our old tubes, so that we can finalize our rear suspension. We're going to do some cutting on the core support because we want to get a 4-inch radiator along with a shroud and some fans in there. So we're going to show you how we're doing that. But that's what E-Doggy's Garage looks like for this episode. Not really exciting, but it's stuff that has to be done. I'd like to invite you to subscribe to our channel. I'd like you to like us and give us some comments. If there's something you see that maybe you would do different, or if you really like what we're doing, or if you just want to say hi and hey, we like your channel, or hi and your channel sucks. We'll take those too. So, all right, sit back and enjoy E-Doggy's Garage. All right, so with the bigger engine, so we went from a 347 stroked 302 to a 351 Windsor block, and it's stroked out to a 427 with these Hemi heads. So we're going to go with a bigger radiator. So in order to, we got to cut a little bit out of the core support in here, and I'll show you the tape line that we've created. We're going to go with a top and a bottom tank rather than side tanks, which is what the Mustang had. It had a top and a bottom tank. And there's a couple reasons we're going to do that. But we want to develop a little bit more space so that we can get plenty of fan and plenty of radiator in the car. So I'm taking the front bumper off. I'm going to take the upper filler panel out because I need to move the air conditioner condenser forward, because I'm going to do a little bit of cutting on the core support, which we're going to build some stiffener material. We're going to build some stiffeners that go in the top of the core support, but that's for a later project. So I'll show you what we're going to cut out of the core support to make room for that radiator. So you can see that tape line, and if you were to line up with the top of the core support, and these Mustangs, I mean, again, we didn't do a ton to the front of this car. A lot of this is still kind of stock Mustang. And so what we're going to do is we're going to cut on this tape line, and everything to the back side of the tape line is going to come off, and then our radiator will sit more straight up and down, and it'll sit a little bit farther forward. But as I said, we got the front bumper off. We're gonna take this filler panel out of there so that I can move the fan and the condenser and everything forward. How about them bugs? This car actually gets drove a ton, so it'll be fun to get it back together. So back here in the back, we've got our Rick's tank. This is a 27-gallon tank. We're gonna run a mix of gasoline and alcohol, so kind of a flex fuel deal. We've got our Motion Raceworks flex fuel reader that's gonna go in the gas line, but what we've done is we've drilled holes in the flange of the tank to align with the holes that were in the Mustang. And then I've added this stiffener right here. So as you can see, and I have a little bit of trimming yet to do on the floor and some more cleanup before we before we set the tank back in. We've got a little bit of scraping around and everything from before, but then that stiffener is held up to the floor by a couple of brackets. And again, we're going with a little bit more fuel. So my camera holder won't angle down far enough for this next shot that I want to make. So here's how you fix that. Okay, that's as far as it would go down before. All right, there is a little bit more angle. I want to show cutting that core support out, so I needed to angle my phone down a little bit. So, a little tech tip for you. So that makes room. Now it's got to be trimmed up and straightened. I just cut it on a tape line, but that makes room for our radiator and our fan. Kind of an average day here at E-Doggy's Garage. Nothing too eventful happened. We did a lot of stuff that is going to help us prepare for the next phase of the project in different aspects. We did a little bit of stuff on the rear suspension. We stripped out some wiring that we're not going to use, that we're going to replace. We took out some oil cooler and some priming oil for we used for priming the old engine. That was a lot of stuff that we're going to replace. We're going to put a new oil cooler on the car, but we're going to go from like a 10-10 line to a 12. So we need bigger lines. We need a bigger cooler. A lot of that stuff. I'll show you the stuff laying on the bench. But what we did today was I started off by removing this portion of the core support right here, which stuck out, I don't know, an extra 1.5 inches. And it kind of made the radiator lay a little bit, leaning back. And it also took up space in between our pulley assembly and where we would want our radiator and our fans to be. We want to go with like a 4-inch thick radiator. So we're going to go see a guy who builds radiators. We're gonna go see him on Tuesday, and he wanted a model basically of what kind of space we had rather than just give him tape measurements. So what I did was, this is insulating foam that we glued together. This is the profile of the radiator that we need. We're gonna have a top tank and a bottom tank. And this is the opening in the core support that we've created by removing some of this sheet metal. So this is gonna fit down in there like that. And we kind of want to maintain this same contour. We want to get as much radiator in here as we can. So this model that we created kind of fits the contour of the top of the core support. So by doing this, we can show the guy that's going to build, we're going to go talk to about building a radiator for us. On the front side, it shows him kind of the area that we have to move air flow through. He's gonna have to build us a top tank and a bottom tank. Then he's gonna have to, we're gonna develop where our radiator hose is gonna go in the top and where it's gonna go in the bottom. But then a couple other things that we've gotta do is, we've got our Peterson Fluid Systems pump that gets placed down there, and there's obviously hoses that come off of it. And they not only attach to the pump and the engine, they're going to go through this Clearview filter. And this Clearview filter gets mounted right here on the side of the inner fender. So we've got to place that. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to get a lot of our plumbing in place before we actually build the radiator, because we are going to put an oil cooler in front and we have some other lines that we have to run. So again, it's all stuff that we're preparing to do, but you kind of got to do your homework first, or else you might do the wrong thing. Here's some of the stuff that we removed off the front of the car. Our priming pump, the tubing for the priming pump, which would pre-start prior to the engine, actually starting, so it would fill it full of oil. Our oil cooler is there. We're going to go to bigger lines for the new engine. Everything lived in front of the core support in between the grill. We had to get all that out of there, mostly because we needed to move the air conditioner condenser forward so that we could do some cutting on that core support. But we are going to change some things with the oil cooler and stuff. So there's some of the check valves that existed in there. So all that stuff had to be removed so that we could get started. One of the other things that we did today was we put the Forgeline wheels and the Goodyear tires back on the car. In the last video that we made, the last YouTube episode that we had the Forgeline wheels on the car and we rolled the thing outside. Well, the treatment of this wheel is the drum and the inner of the wheel are brushed, and they're brushed in a straight line. And when we looked at these wheels at SEMA, or a version of this wheel at SEMA, it's probably been three or 4 years ago. It was before COVID, I believe. This wheel had a certain color on it that we really liked. So we ordered the wheel with that color. And when it showed up, the color wasn't right. It was too brown. We couldn't see the brush through the tinted, it's kind of a tinted clear, but it's a powder coat. So we sent these wheels back to Forgeline. They agreed that the color wasn't quite right based on their example, and they were very good about helping us out. So, and they turned them around really quick. So this wheel came back and it is the color we were looking for, and we can see that brush work. We had one of these wheels out in the sun and they really look good. So kudos to Forgeline, because they really took care of us on making sure that our wheel was exactly what we wanted. And as you guys have seen in some of our other videos, is we've been trying to get our rear suspension finished. So we've got our sway bar on, and then the last thing Actually, the two last things that we need to do is we changed some of our mounts, so we've got to get some different fasteners. We've got to get some stuff that's shorter. We need some new spacers to go in between our heims on our lower control arms. But what we did was we went to this 305 tire, and we didn't really make a ton of modifications to the body. The factory lip of the inner fender is still on the outside. We trimmed it off the best we could without reducing the strength of it, but we could only go so far. But we did a pretty good job getting the 305s under it. But one of the other things that we did, and we've been waiting for these bars, is our old trailing arm bar was a bigger diameter, and it took up more room, and it was hitting the tire so much that we had to put a little bend in it, which is actually too much bend. But what we did was we went to a smaller diameter chromoly bar, and we're gonna put just a slight bend in it. And I know that takes away some of our adjustability with having the left and right hand heims, but it's the way we're gonna do it. So we put one of our chromoly bars under the car today, and it fits great. We're gonna put just a little bit of a bend in it to get around the tire to give us a little bit more space. And then our rear suspension will primarily be done other than some fasteners. All right, so before I cut you loose from this episode of E-Doggy's Garage, I want to invite you to subscribe to our channel, like us, and give us some comments. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, maybe what you would do different, and shoot, just say hi. So on our next episodes coming up, we've got to develop a transmission mount, which is going to incorporate our torque arm mount. Since we put the 6-speed in, it's longer than our 5-speed. So we're going to make both these mounts the same. And then we are going to try to get 2-inch stainless steel tubing under this thing as our primary tubes for our headers. And we have ICE Engine Works kit on order, and we are going to use those modeling blocks to help us build those headers. So those will be coming up on our next YouTube episodes. And also, we had to get our do-all saw working that we bought a number of years ago, and we kind of semi-restored in order to be able to make those cuts with our IC Engine Works. So want to invite you back next time to see what's going on here in E-Doggy's Garage.